The dominoes are starting to fall at the quarterback position here in free agency as Sam Darnold and Justin Fields are off the board. Sam Darnold takes a career year that, even though it didn't end up great, still catapulted him into a huge deal this offseason, where he now signs with the Seattle Seahawks for 3 years and $110 million, 55 of it guaranteed. And even though Justin Fields had a short stint as the starter in Pittsburgh, he also inks a pretty reasonable deal with the New York Jets. 2 years, $40 million, $30 million guaranteed. Let's go ahead and start with Sam Darnold and the Seattle Seahawks. Now, I do believe this is a downgrade for Sam Darnold and his fantasy value, because you go from playing half of your games indoors in Minnesota with Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison, and TJ Hawkinson to playing half of your games outdoors in Seattle with Jaxon Smith-Njigba. That's it. They've released Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf is traded. So now, unfortunately, you really don't have the weapons that would have made this once a much more reasonable fantasy outlook for him. And while I do believe this is a downgrade for Sam Darnold, I do still think that it's about even to Geno Smith for Jaxon Smith-Njigba. My worries in Seattle aren't necessarily the Darnold and JSN connection. It's more along the lines of the offensive line that can't protect anybody. And if you can't protect Sam Darnold and you can't give him time, you're going to see a guy that performed like he did against the Lions and in the playoffs last year, where pressure just mounted up and he couldn't have time to throw the ball and read the field. And while I do believe this still makes JSN a top 24 wide receiver, I'm hesitant to put him inside the top 12 until I A, see something on the offensive line for Seattle, and B, see them add another weapon. Because at this point, there's still plenty of targets to go around. Even if they add another weapon to take some of the pressure off of JSN, it will help JSN be way more open and give him some more big plays. Now, if Seattle fixes the offensive line, then this is also good for the running backs as well, because Sam Darnold can drive the ball down the field, which will help open things up for Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet. But if the offensive line still sucks, it doesn't really matter. Sam Darnold's not going to have time to throw. Walker and Charbonnet are not going to have holes to run through. And this offense is going to be one of the biggest disappointments of the entire 2025 season. All right, now let's take a look at what the New York Jets have with Justin Fields. I really do like this with Breece Hall, because this is some RPO stuff that we can go ahead and add in with Breece Hall that you didn't have with Aaron Rodgers the last couple of years. So for Breece Hall, this makes him a little bit more of a weapon, because now teams are going to have to pay attention to Fields and Hall in the backfield. And now Garrett Wilson has his quarterback, which is good, because we needed to know who was going to be throwing him the ball and whether or not that option is going to make him a top 12 option this season. And I do believe that it is going to be possible, but kind of the same thing I just said about JSN. Now, Garrett Wilson to me is a little bit more of a complete wide receiver than JSN. He's a guy that can do a few more things all over the field, including maybe stretch it a little bit more than JSN, and a little bit of a better red zone target for me. But now the question is going to become, who's going to be that opposite weapon of Garrett Wilson? Because for the New York Jets, they don't really have anybody outside of Wilson and Breece Hall. I expect them to make an addition of a playmaker either here in free agency or in the draft. And that will at least help keep some of the eyes off of Garrett Wilson and keep him out of some double teams that could really make it difficult for him and Justin Fields to connect. So for Garrett Wilson, I do still think that he's got top 12 potential. Right now, I would say he's kind of around 10 to 12 for me. If they don't add anybody else, he might drop just a little bit more, because even though the volume will be there, I don't know if the consistent, dependable volume will be there. So Headliner Nation, down in the comments below, let me know what you're thinking about both of these moves. For Sam Darnold, I definitely see him being a guy that is a top 24 quarterback. Same thing for Justin Fields. With Justin Fields' rushing ability, maybe he gets a little bit closer and he kind of sits in that 13, 14, 15 range for quarterbacks. For Jaxon Smith-Njigba, right now, I've got him wide receiver 2, top 24. I'm hesitant to go into the top 12 until I know that they've added another playmaker that allows JSN to be a little bit more open than what we would see. Kenneth Walker and Zach Charbonnet, I'm holding out really diving into them until I see a little bit better of an upgrade to the offensive line. For the New York Jets, Garrett Wilson right now is sitting 10, 11, 12 for me in terms of wide receivers. He could end up bumping maybe just a little bit there, but as long as they add another pass catcher, I'm going to keep him as a wide receiver 1, kind of on that low end. If they don't end up adding another wide receiver or another target for Justin Fields, I think he's going to have some weeks where you see him be more of a mid to high end wide receiver 2. And every once in a while, you're going to see some big plays and touchdowns that push him into wide receiver 1 territory. And for Breece Hall, he's going to be a mid to low end running back 1 for me with this move. Make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure you subscribe if you're new here and turn on the bell notification. So when all of the information and all of the breaking news is coming out during free agency, you know the fantasy headliners will take care of you right away. Stay safe and stay healthy. And I'll see y'all probably in a little bit with some more breaking news.
Analytics off the chain, all the channels not the same. Jake and Kyle, you know the name. Headliner Nation, we running the game.